Latin America is where biggest WFM folks exist, and one of the best hub for the WFM professionals who were there in large numbers. With this, I invite all of you to GWFM's Latin America chapter. Today, we're going to talk about very relevant topic, which is something very interesting one, and we have the galaxy of speakers today. Each one of them are going to share their thoughts and experiences. Each one of them carry more than 2 decades of experience. It comes with like more than 150 to 200 years of experience put together. They're really done tremendous amount of work in their organization and also in the country that where they are currently. And today is going to be a big knowledge sharing platform which we're going to have. To talk about GWFM to some extent before we could start, GWFM started 6 years back. We are currently present in North America, ANZ, Latin America. This is the second event that we have. In fact, Norman and Sebastian is the one leading this. In fact, we started this chapter with him, and he could not make it. Somehow, it is colleague Namich is here with us, joining us, and allowed to share his knowledge and experiences. Also, recently we had Middle East chapter and also the South Africa chapter, where we had a couple of events for that. And 2022 onwards, we want to be present in every country and planning to have all the chapters countrywide. We're seeking support from all the WFM folks who are present here, where this community belongs to you and it belongs to us. So we are here to share our knowledge. Please join us on our social media. If you could just take a click of this link, you could join us on our social media to connect with each other and communicate with each other. Let's endorse each other. This really gives us, getting all of us together worldwide. We belong to the same community. This is the last event that we had in the month of March 23rd. Again, we had a galaxy of speakers. We're missing Sebastian here, and Sean is again here, and June is here, and we have got new additions. Today's event. This is going to be another memorable event in which we're going to make it. This is the agenda for today, whereas we're going to have Vanessa Nicholson is going to have her keynote speech. And post-which, we're going to have a roundtable discussion with all the 5 eminent speakers. And feel free to type your questions in the chat box. Feel free to ask any question. We want to encourage both-way communications with the speakers and also the audience, so that we will all enjoy interacting with each other. All right. So GWFM is registered in Canada and also in the US. We want to provide kind of a helping hand where we want to touch every WFM professional's heart and soul on this planet. We are playing the role of advisory and also, helping the community. In fact, GWFM has been playing a role of, we did the roundtable discussions, keynote speeches, and summits, annual summits. We did the hackathon. Have you heard about hackathon, where hackathon was confined to only technical people, that to only product development and product engineering? But we did the first hackathon where we gathered hundreds of folks around the world. We had 48 hours of hackathon, which is non-stop hackathon, business design thinking business cases. We were able to create 20 business cases in 48 hours. These are all the great companies where KPMG, Sutherlands, and Concentrix have owned the best ideas and best hackathon awards. We had other one also, so you could take a look at it later point in time. In fact, we have been known as awarding body. We award we invite awarding for best practices and best tools on the planet. A lot of companies participating. Last year, we had around 25 companies, and this year when we did it in the June month, we had around 22 companies participated. So year on year, we are inviting our top companies to present their ideas and best practices and also best tools and how they really done something better. And GWFM is the first one to introduce Lean certification, Lean Six Sigma certification in line with the WFM. You could take up a project, you could take up a course with us, and where you could take up the projects in WFM. That gives you kind of a very interesting part. And we are the first one to introduce data science in WFM. Today's skill is like data science. Every WFM professional should be data scientist. If not today, tomorrow you had to be. That's how the job is evolving and business is demanding. So we got to be relevant to the current and future business scenarios. Hence, we thought that we will introduce data science specific to WFM. And we all know that 27 June is the day for WFM professionals. In fact, we're the one introduced this on the day of 27 June. We celebrate International WFM Professionals Day. In fact, we have been doing it since last 4 years. If any of you guys have missed out, please join us so that in next year we celebrate and let's gather in big numbers. We've been 20K professionals community, including universities, students, and also WFM professionals across the world. And we're the first one to introduce WFM education in business schools and universities. And also we've been doing international WFM quiz and hackathons and podcast and many other things. So we also provide kind of membership, GWFM individual and corporate membership, and we do executive interviews, we do publications of white papers, reports, trending newsletters and magazines. Very soon we're going to come out of a WFM maturity model standards, which is something that very unique, and we've been thinking about this. And we call GWFM University. We provide skilling and upskilling. We offer up to right from RTA to the fellowship level, leadership level, kind of training and upskilling programs. And we do have Innovation Center, which is a design thinking based innovation center. We encourage the startups in WFM. And if any company would want to explore new practices or best practices, we do have that. We do all these things. And let me not take more time. We have Galaxy speakers. Before we could get into it, so I invite Vanessa Nicholson, Director, Contact Center, Innovation and Transformation at Royal Bank of Canada.
Okay. I think I've taken control from you, Shiva. Is yes. My screen share coming through?
Absolutely right. And thanks, Vanessa, taking your time to join us. And we've been speaking. This is the second time that we are speaking in GWFM forum. Before we start, I take a pride and opportunity to introduce Vanessa. Vanessa comes with more than 2 decades of experience in WFM. In fact, Vanessa has been in RBC more than 5 years, and prior to that, she was with Concentrix, and more than 12 years of experience in IBM. So she comes with more than 2 decades of experience, one of the influencers in WFM arena, and she speaks with a lot of authority and very good subject matter expert in WFM. And today, Vanessa is going to talk about applied design thinking, a day in a life of contact center transformation, which is really very important, friends. With this, I invite Vanessa. Great to have you with us. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Shiva. So I'm going to tell you a story today. I'm sure many of you get all kinds of trainings and presentations and whatnot, but as Shiva reached out to me and asked for, if I had an idea for something that I would want to talk about, I had a really interesting story that had occurred very, very recently, and I had been using in a couple of conversations with people, both within my organization and outside, and the story seemed to resonate with them. They seemed to take something away from it. So when Shiva reached out and said, hey, do you have something that you'd be willing to talk about? I went, you know what, maybe I do. I think that this, there's something here that seems to resonate with others that I've talked about this day with. And, I'm hopeful that everybody can take a little something away from that. what I do want to start with a little bit is what this is not. So, this is not a presentation designed to teach you, about applied design thinking at a grand scale. If you want educational programs and things like that, I am absolutely certain Dr. Shiva can connect you with them much better than I could. I am not a deep design thinking expert. I took a 2-day class maybe 3 or 4 years ago. But one of the things I like about continuing education is I kind of look at it almost like an all-you-can-eat buffet. You get to pick a piece from different frameworks and put them together to make your own customized meal that suits you. I find with every educational program or everything that I lean into, I tend to walk away with just 1 or 2 ahas, something that I take with me and that I put into practice and that, I carry forward. And this is one of those ahas. So as a little bit of background in terms of, who I am, what I'm doing, and why I had this day I'm going to tell you about. So interestingly enough, my role right now is not core WFM practice, as in I do not have responsibility or accountability for WFM employees, nor am I responsible anymore for telling the stories of our people and our data and making that come through. I've moved into the technology space. However, one of my core projects right now is helping our organization move from a very, very old premise-based WFM platform to a cloud platform with a different vendor. So, the history of workforce management serves me well. I'm getting to learn all kinds of new things, spending way too much time with lawyers. But that said, a day in a life of a transformation, there's a WFM application here. And I am pretty sure that as I go through this story, that many of you will have had days where this occurred. So again, I'm going to jump into a story, and I will admit, I think I flashed on one of the screens that's going to come up, and I might have imagined it, but I think Shiva may have winced a little bit because, this may, again, this is not a professional, this is a story. So humor me, bear with me, but I'm hoping that you guys take something away from it. So without further ado, I am going to introduce to you if my computer cooperates. Okay. Is it flipping for you guys? If a panelist can nod, that would help.
Yes,
Yes?
it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So here's the heroine of our story. This is me. A much happier, or actually, I guess a much grumpier me here. But just a day in a life. So this is a day, I guess, maybe about a month ago. So again, leading a technology transformation, I tend to be in meetings back to back most of the time. I rely on instant messaging a lot in order to communicate with people. On this particular day, I happened to have about 20 people within the organization sitting in a training class where they were learning about their new application for workforce management that they would be moving to. Again, in terms of history, the organization has been on the current implementation for 20 years in a premise-based world, and they've been holding on to that for a long time. There's a lot of evolution and opportunity in rebuilding, but it's change. People are scared. So I do get a lot of messages, and I do pop into the training from time to time just to try and get an ear for, if there's any real issues or things that I might need to escalate with the vendor in order to get more attention or perhaps more consulting support for if the core training isn't robust enough. So I'm close to it, but I'm not there. So anyways, there I am. I'm sitting in a meeting, and I get a message, Vanessa, I think we've got an issue. Okay, so, this is not abnormal. What was abnormal is that within about 2 minutes, I got 5 more messages and a lot of anxiety in the messages. So people going, okay, you need to jump over here. This is huge. I'll need twice the amount of people if this is true. We had people really, really worried about what they were seeing in a new product. And spoiler, the product is fine, but that's not the point of the story. So they're very, again, they're still right now in that part of the change where they're trying to take what they used to do and they're trying to move it over into the new world. And as part of any change, it takes a little bit to let go and to reimagine something different, right? And that's a natural part of training. So they're still, in that stage where they're clinging to, wait a second, this is what I do today. How do I do exactly that tomorrow? So again, lots of anxiety, messages, whatnot. So I would love to tell you that my perfect response here was to pull out, some design thinking and to immediately look at the exact perfect thing and, solve it in an instant. That's not what happened. Coming through, I should be seeing a smile by this point if this is coming through. No? Do you see my head on fire? Yeah, okay, I got a smile. Okay, so this was my first response. And again, I get it, again, lots of anxiety. People are messaging me. It's hard not to pick up on that. I tend to be reasonably empathetic, so I take that on if people are feeling things. So I jumped into action, as any sort of person responsible for a large scale project would. I started shooting off IMs. I was asking questions, trying to get more information. I was hopping on phone calls to hear more detail about what they were concerned about. I ended up pulling up the contract and the RFP questionnaire that we had used to select a vendor to make sure we hadn't made a mistake and not asked the right question when we were searching for capabilities. I was scheduling meetings to connect application consultants and some of our trainees together to make sure that they really understood what was going on. So in the course of an hour or two, I must have done a dozen of these things. Immediately reactive, fruitful in that I gathered information that I needed, right? So I got to the bottom of the, what is the actual issue? Why are you anxious? What capability do you think the technology is missing? And again, that's not really the point of the story. They were very worried about their ability for autonomous data entry. So having agents enter their own time in their schedules. So for those of you in WFM, particularly those who may be exposed to best practice, you might be raising your eyebrow a little bit and going, why would you have your agents entering their own time in their schedules? But again, the first response was, we do this today. We want to do it tomorrow. If we can't have them do it tomorrow, it's going to result in a lot more work, likely for workforce management. So that was the audience. That was what they were feeling, regardless of whether the capability issue existed in the technology. That was the sentiment. So again, we were looking at the RFP going, did we ask if we could do this when we surveyed all the different vendors? And we were getting very detailed, and people were there, again, a lot of emotion, a lot of concern about workload. Okay. And that's where, as I started asking questions and getting to sort of understand what was behind everyone's anxiety, that I asked my first why. So for anybody that has exposure to applied design thinking, understanding your problem is really one of the key tenets. You ask why once. So I'm like, okay, so why is this a problem? The first answer was, well, because we do it today and we want to do it tomorrow. But again, for anybody who's done any work in terms of truly understanding a problem, you don't ask that question just once. You ask it a bunch. So this is where I started diving deeper into the problem itself. So why do our agents today enter their own time? Well, it's because we can't schedule it. Oh, wait a second. Why can't we schedule it? Because we can't predict it. Wait a second. WFM who can't predict something? Well, why can't we predict it? Because we don't have all of the right data feeding into our WFM system. We haven't connected all of the pipes. So only part of the story comes through. Why don't we have the data going into the tool? Because it takes application development in order to supply it. But the good news is we're doing that now. As we move into the cloud, one of the core parts of this transformation, the very thing I had probably spent that entire morning on the phone advocating for, was to make sure that we had all of the information going into the tool. So for those of you who've been around WFM for a while, I'm sure you've been exposed, garbage in, garbage out. I'm fighting for the right data going into the technology. It sounds like a basic, sounds like it should be easy, but in an omni-channel world, it's not always as simple. But again, I had very much just spent my entire day prior to everybody getting very upset, solving the core issue that was creating the thing that they were looking for. So here's where I'll get, so Shiva, I'm hoping this makes you happier. I am providing some actual content here. So this is sort of the areas of design thinking and sort of, had I not lit my head on fire, this is probably what I would have done. I think I nailed empathy, right? I was talking to them, I was feeling their pain, I was getting all of the detail from them and trying to understand the problem. Full on empathy. The definition is where applied design thinking really helped me, right? So defining the problem, using the 5 whys to make sure I was solving the right problem was really, really key. And in all honesty, that's what let me sleep that night, was having gone through that and realized I was actively taking steps to resolve the issue. Irrespective of what the vendor came back and said they could or couldn't do, spoiler, they can absolutely do what they want. Whether or not we should is a different thing, but there are other ways to accomplish the same ends. But then you take your ideas, you prototype them, and you test them. I haven't done that yet. Talk to me in a couple of months, and hopefully I'll have a good story for you on how this all worked through. But really understanding the problem statement and what you're trying to solve is absolutely key. My first instinct got me stuck in the empathy space. I was, feeling and really trying to support people and get information, but it's where that definition and understanding the 5 whys and applying it in a real-time situation that allowed me to truly use design thinking in a way that was fruitful and supportive and helped us get to will hopefully get us to a better outcome down the road. So another saying in design thinking is fall in love with the problem, not the solution. So I was talking about this team of trainees who are sitting in their training room and they're trying to figure out how to move something from one place to the other. They're in love with their solution. It's what they know. It's what they're comfortable with. It makes sense. If you've got 20 years, and for those of you who are in outsourcing spaces, you may have more diversity of exposure. But for captive contact centers, where you have people that have sort of grown up organically within a company and don't necessarily have the same diversity of exposure, it's their known, it's their constant. So it's an incredible disruption, and they can't help but cling to the solution that is their baseline and their status quo. So with that, not a whole lot much more to say, other than maybe in a couple of months I'll have the rest of the story for you. But at the end of the day, I went from having a really, really bad day, really worried, concerned that I had made, a multi-million-dollar decision wrongly for a bank that would be very mad at me, to going, oh, wait a second, you know what? We've got this. We're good. Like, yes, we have some things to work out, but at the end of the day, we're going to end up at a better place. And I feel confident that we're solving the right problems. Again, the rest of my day had been singularly focused on solving the root cause of the issue. So with that, my friendly little avatar here, thank you. Shiva, I appreciate you giving me sort of the opportunity to talk about my really bad day. I hope that it gave some of you some value. And again, it's a small thing, but when you're tackling a problem, take a look at it, try to unpack it, understand the why of what you're doing, and make sure that you ask it multiple times, because your first answer usually isn't the actual problem.
Thanks, Vanessa. It's incredible. In fact, this is need for the hour. When I was researching since last 2 years, I've not seen any companies using design thinking for their problem solving. In fact, this is coming handy now for creating customer experience. Design thinking is all about creating experience nowadays. In fact, there's very apt a need for the hour. That's what I see. And I have a question from one of the audience where asking question that how do we implement design thinking process in the organization to tackle the problems and offering solutions?
I think that, again, perhaps somebody more qualified will answer that question for you. And Shiva, I think you have, eons more experience than I do even. I can tell you how I've seen it work. So I partner a lot with technology organizations who are very big on design thinking. I see it less so on the business side, but within technology, it's a framework that most people have a degree of exposure to. Again, I think that it is very successful within an agile space. So if you're familiar with agile, the construct itself gives you the opportunity to really identify user stories and problems, and it suits itself very well to design thinking. So I guess my answer is that one sort of program design is not enough. You often need a delivery vehicle for it. Education is fundamentally key. So getting people exposed so that, you can have more Vanessas who get their individual ahas, but it's less about taking an entire program and saying, we shall do design thinking, or we shall do agile even, right? It's about taking the pieces and the elements and making your own sort of buffet menu from the learning and creating that opportunity to stitch it together at an organizational level.
Absolutely. I think when we did the hackathon, we exactly followed the similar pattern, and people loved it. Some of the organizations where they could not solve the problems since last 1 year and 6 months, they could do it in 48 hours. So all that they got to understand the process, and if they can sincerely work on that, they can find solutions. It's all about like outside-in approach. Then we always look at inside-out approach, always thinking that everything is fine, and this is really neat for the hour. Absolutely.
Yeah, how many? So you were talking about the years of expertise on this panel, which is a little scary, but how many of us have spent great parts of our career potentially solving the wrong problems for a period of time, right? And taking that step back and making sure that you're solving the right problem on a day-to-day basis. Not only in sort of macro level strategic planning, but even on the simplest thing, the simplest little problem that comes across your desk, taking that question, that opportunity to make sure that you are really looking at the right problem is a pretty key prioritization exercise.
Absolutely. Very well mentioned, Vanessa. Truly honored to have you with us today, and it has been fantabulous learning for me, and also I'm sure that to the audience and also the rest of the speakers. Would like to ask any questions. There's one panelist. I think one of them has raised their hand. Okay, fine.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yeah.
So Vanessa, are you already through this process, or you are in flight of the new tool deployment?
I'm right in the middle of it. In fact, I'm skipping out on 2 meetings I should be at right now.
Well, we definitely appreciate that. I had a question related to the diligence and the process you went through, right, from moving from on-prem to a cloud-based setup. That cloud-based setup transition, were there kind of learning lessons or pitfalls that you kind of came across just as a surprises, right? Organically, you come across surprises. Did you have any learning lessons that you have learned already in process?
I think that I certainly had some learnings on the contract side, which is not to take for granted that, particularly if your organization is new, leaning into the cloud, that as you try to get through data privacy and security, some of the data stuff caught me by surprise. And working for a bank, we have a lot of extra security, and it's a lot of extra hoops to jump through. So it took us longer to get approval to move to cloud than we would have expected, or that you might experience if you're in a more open space. So most of my lessons at this point have probably primarily been to do with pre-contracting, contract negotiations, and then the service agreements and things like that. In terms of execution, I might have some stories for you in a couple months. But that said, I did reach out to some folks within our network who have gone through these transformations before, to pick their brains a little bit about things that I could expect as problems. I actually had a wonderful conversation with somebody who's in the process of transitioning off the product that we're transitioning onto, being very careful not to mention vendors here. But so I managed to connect with them just as we, like, my business had already selected the product they wanted. They had their heart set on it. We had the negotiate, and then I hear, oh, we're moving off of that. So,
Oh, wow.
but
Okay.
for lesson learned, but that said, I had enough time to understand what the problem was and to try to take steps to make sure that we're prepared to handle it. So they were moving off of that particular cloud implementation because they had trouble accessing their data. So they like to do a lot of custom things, and they didn't really necessarily have the right pipes in place and the autonomy to be able to do what they wanted to do with their data. So as a result, I negotiated for an inclusion of professional services in return for our SaaS licensing every year. So I have opportunity to change things in the future without having to secure additional funding. What else did we do? And then I also made sure that I had enough sort of application development time with my data team, the team that I have that's responsible for kind of getting the data out, to make sure that they have enough time to spend with their APIs, their APIs and things like that. So again, finding out other people's problems can help you get in front of them.
Absolutely. No, wonderful. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Vanessa. It's been a great insights. Great to have you with us. Thank you so much for taking your time out.
Thank you, Shiva. Appreciate the opportunity. So I'll drop off video now so you can get your panelists in play.
Thank you. Good stay back. All right. Thank you so much, Vanessa. It has been a great learning. Before we move on to the panel discussion, Jay, I'll just take your permission to just make an announcement about the BWFM, so which is a disruptive event which we are planning. I'll just take a quick shot of that. Hi, friends and colleagues. This is the event that I was talking about. This is the first WFM reality show event. What is this is all about, and what is this we're going to do about? So we are going to expect hundreds of participants across the world. And we're going to have a lot of storytelling, a lot of fun in between, and quiz programs. Also, like, we're going to have teams from the companies where they're going to nominate. At the same time, we're going to have individual participation. So this is all for free. Please feel free to register yourself, and we'll get back to you, and also we'll prepare you before the event could starting. So we have this 3 days because we could not do this a whole one day. We thought of a have 4 hours in a day, so that we're going to cover this entire November. So this is very flexible time zone, which we have really worked out for the BWFM. 3 days of sequence event, which really works for all of us across the world. Please join us here. If you want to be an audience, sit and watch, you could register. At the same time, if you want to participate in this, you could also register for this. I'll share you the link in a while in the chat box. At the same time, like sometime tomorrow, you're going to have the invitation. However, you could see the upload and also the announcement in the social media. So the winners are going to be getting gold medal and also silver medal, which is going to be something very precious. This is as equivalent as Olympic medal that we get. This is going to be Olympic medal for WFM folks who are really champion, and we're going to be known as an icon in WFM. Let's have some fun, which is something that very important aspects of it, friends. Please register for this. So with this, thank you so much. I'll not delay much. We want to have moderator of the roundtable today, Jay Parikh. Jay Parikh, we all know, most of us, he is one of our advisories members. Jay has been there in the industry close to 2.5 to 3 decades in the industry. He has worked for most of the top companies like Cytel, Concentrix, also Ivitavan and Perceptis, and also like Sutherland's. He was a global head, and now he's global lead of WFM at ResultCX. ResultCX is evolving and is playing a global leadership role there. Jay is one of the influencers listed in the last year. And Jay has been a great contributor to WFM community. And for WFM, GWFM is really very helpful. In fact, has been contributing a lot to community, especially knowledge sharing and also building professional networking. Trust me, last year, his presentation really created a kind of best practices award that really, was able to create at the Sutherland, where Jay is being instrumental in getting these things done. With this, Jay, invite you to moderate the session, or do you could have all the speakers introduction one by one, and I have their profile. Yeah, how do you?
Sounds good. Let's get the panel going, right? So we can do a quick introduction around the panel, right? Let's start off with Mitch, if you don't mind, if you can just kind of do a quick introduction of yourself a little bit, and after Mitch, we'll move to Evelyn.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mitch Paz. I'm the Workforce Senior Director for the Performance Middle American Regions. I have 2 years experience in workforce management, and we'd like to hear and share some knowledge with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Evelyn?
Hi, well, I'm the Workforce Director for Conduent. I'm in charge of the Latin America region, and I have more than 14 years in the BPO industry and specifically workforce management.
And come from a beautiful place. Appreciate it. Norman?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jay. Norman Acevedo, and I'm Associate Director for United Health Group, which is, a healthcare organization. I oversee our LATAM footprint across the nearshore, the nearshore sites across 5 countries and around 10 sites under my responsibility. Very happy to be here with everyone.
Thank you. Juan?
So, hi, Jay. This is Juan. I'm in Argentina. I work for Kyndryl. The Kyndryl is a spin-off of the GTS unit for IBM that's happening right now. I work on the workforce management team in reporting and analytics for the global team. So that's what I do.
Thank you. We have Sean on.
I'm just searching for Sean. Said that he is going to join a little later. I'm just searching him in the group. Give me a few minutes. Sean, are you there?
And while we're waiting on Sean, Vanessa, you want to do a quick introduction again, if some of the new team members may have joined?
Oh, sorry, for me. I don't know that Shiva has me on the panel, but if you guys wish for me to be, I certainly can. So my name is Vanessa Nicholson. I've got a background in both outsourced and insourced WFM. I spent about way too long at IBM, followed by Concentrix, and then I've moved over into the financial services industry, supporting a large Canadian bank. I am a self-prescribed WFM lifer, even though I technically don't have WFM in my title anymore. But you can take the girl out of WFM, but you can't take the WFM out of the girl. So
that's right. Awesome. Well, thank you, guys. Today we're going to talk about some of the failure and success stories as all of us throughout the globe have gone through the pandemic, right? And it's a continuing process. It's a continuously evolving process, impacting millions and millions of people, to a point of, dying. But, there are many more millions that are impacted by, the family members they're, kind of left behind. But, even equally or a little bit less importantly, right, it's impacting a lot of the businesses, how any nature of business that we are doing now or that we were doing prior to 2020 has changed in some form or fashion to a certain level of extent, if not radically shifted to a new paradigm shift, right? And, that's where we are going to kind of focus on some of the learnings that we have in all of our individual organizations and the industry that we have experienced and come across as a point of information that may be educational for other team members that are on the call. and able to ask questions right throughout. So, I've got a few questions that I had jotted down as Dr. Kumar and I were kind of chatting about it. And I'd kind of put that in our panel group, and I'll kind of look through that, and I'll call out individual panelists just to kind of provide their perspective if they have any information that they want to share that might be good for the team members. And before I get started, right, so I've gone through this while in pandemic, a little bit of my introduction, right? I was with Sutherland in my past life. I recently joined Results CX at start of the year, right? So I did a kind of a little bit of a career move in the middle of the pandemic, right? So I've gotten to see a couple of different organizations very, very closely as how they've tactically changed throughout the pandemic and continue to evolve, with the nature of business we are in, especially in an outsourcing environment with so many clients that you are supporting, right? From different verticals, from healthcare to finance to finance technology to pure technology to communication. Every single industry has evolved over the last couple of years and will continue to do so to whatever the norm we end up with, right? And that norm may be ever evolving for the time being that we know of. So, with that, one of the first questions I wanted to pitch out now, call that out first to Norman, right? To provide a little bit of guidance, right? Coming from your background, having different type of visibility than some of the other the rest of us do, right? What are some of the success and lessons that you have seen across in your role interacting with different vendor partners or something like that over the last couple of years at least?
Thank you, Jay. First thing I want to say, there's no questions, right, that 2020, right, brought a lot of disruption into the industry. So lately, most of our partners, right, they're being certainly making a lot of adjustments in terms of, the way we run our business in the industry, coming from, changing the model, the way we schedule, the way we staff, right? And this, recent trends, I think recent trends, what they have added into our workforce, right, it's a new way of seeing things, a new ways to do things, and to kind of challenge the status quo and the way we did things in the past. And for me, the way I see is, a lot of impacts in terms of, new technologies, digital transformation certainly has brought a lot of that new insights, right, to our partners. As well, I can say, not only digital transformation, but the way we are adjusting our human management style, right? The way we run operations has certainly, needs to be different, right? From the way we did things in the past. It's different from having workforce working on brick and mortar operations, right? To recently be on a actual, remote space. And with all these new changes, right, new technologies added in the way we monitor our agents, I think there is a lot of this new concept of what we call the new normal, right? And I'm going to say not just new normal, but I'm going to say the next normal, what that's going to look like, right? In terms of how we're going to operate. And the way I'm seeing it recently is our partners are not just looking into a work from home model that it's gonna, operate, from home, but also looking into a hybrid model, right? And getting into how we can ensure our agents, I was gonna say advocate, that's our common internal language, as we call agents, right? But how we're gonna ensure our agents are happy, working from everywhere, and not just from home, but also from other places, right? Like brick and mortar. And that was a recent study conducted by Harvard Business Review, and they found that 46% of the people, and it was a big study, right? That they conducted 4,000 people, I think they surveyed, and actual agents, right? And in different companies. They found that 46% of those folks, they were happy to be working from home, but the other half wanted to work from everywhere, meaning, I'd rather spend some time working from home, but also spend some time working from the office. And that's why, our company, which is healthcare, right, have seen that it's working. And that's what we allow the flexibility for our agents or for our partners, right, to choose with whether they want to keep their folks working from home or they want to keep their folks working from site. It's okay, right? As long as we are ensuring that performance it's going on the right direction, that we are keeping the right service levels, the staffing, so on and so forth, right? So I think in an overall perspective, there's a lot of lessons learned, things that we could actually, do better. And these all came from the disruption, right, in 2020, right, at the beginning of the pandemic, where, we have to move this big, footprint that we have, brick and mortar, and that we never thought it was going to be possible before COVID. So good things that happened, it opened up our eyes, for us to say, yes, there are things that we can do at home, right, than just thinking that we have to be brick and mortar, for sure. But at the same time, also brought a lot of that disruption, technology and digital transformation, things that we can do better in terms of, from a security standpoint as well, right? Data protection and all these things, I think, contributes to what we're living right now.
Right, and I think you're right. I think a lot of these things that were thought to be impossible have changed, right? I think from a technology standpoint, from a financial institutions, definitely healthcare, with having HIPAA regulations and all those that come into play related to security with PCI and all this stuff, right? A lot of that has changed. Evelyn, I'm going to call on you to get your perspective as well for Conduent, right? How has what were some of the positive or constructive learning lessons that you guys went through over the last couple of years?
Yeah, well, definitely, I think getting to know our region, right? I think, first of all, we were adapting with all the changes. Right now, we need to evolve and to see how things will work. So there are certain regions where you have to evaluate the remote work for certain countries where the connectivity or the infrastructure are not the best in all areas. And therefore, even the agents, they rather work on site instead of a remote work, right? Because they have continuous issues with internet connection and all of the accesses that they have. But for other ones, we do have really good infrastructure, connectivity, and then the people really want to stay working at home. And then definitely, as Norman was saying, you always will have a percentage of people because of personal matters, interaction, interpersonal relationships, or because of the difficulties that they have while doing their job, that they will rather go on site than staying working remotely. Right. So definitely something hybrid that we should go ahead and see. And also the processes, right? Also agree with Norman that we have to review, update, and see which processes had to be remapped to be able to work efficiently for our people while working remotely, and which ones are there to stay, right? It doesn't matter if you're on site or remotely, the things should go the same. But definitely something to review, to upgrade, and to make proper modifications will be the process.
Got it. Thank you. Next question that I jotted down was, experience in maintaining, creating a collaborative culture, right? I think, and I'm going to call on Vanessa to provide feedback, especially based on what you're going through, in a somewhat remote environment. If you have people who are in a hybrid type of setup or even coming to site, right? How do you drive that? Has anything changed over the last couple of years that making you do things a little bit differently to drive better level of collaboration between the teams that may not be sitting next to each other?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, particularly for me. So I have had the unique privilege of leading a remote team pre-COVID. So I had a distributed team that was across in this case, the country, but which seems small given some of the global enterprises that we have. But people, Canada is a vast country. So, 26-hour drives in between some of my employees. And but that said, RBC has a very, very concentrated head office. A lot, I don't know the exact statistics, but a good percentage of our national staffing is located in Toronto. So pre-COVID, there was always a disparity in terms of the access to opportunity. We had challenges with respect to something that I don't think anybody would forget today, which is to include a remote option on every meeting. I used to spend a fair bit of my own time commuting in because I am located reasonably close to Toronto, just for those days to support the senior leaders who weren't accustomed to working with sort of geographically dispersed people. So I'm actually really looking forward to what hybrid looks like moving forward. I personally miss my occasional, like, again, you know, a day or two a week. My commute, my driving, that's when I solved the world's problems. I'd be, you know, sitting in the office and unable to you know, make it through an idea. I'd get in my car and I have it, right? And I'd be calling my team, right? So, you know, in terms of things to sort of watch out for, and, you know, RBC is pursuing with a very sort of people-centered approach. You know, we obviously are trying to position ourselves for sort of 3 categories of employment: people who can be fully remote, people that must be in an office, and people who must be in between. From, you know, a technology perspective, we're looking to make sure that we have the right tools in place to continue to support that. You know, a lot of things that were put in place during the initial response to COVID. And look, we got 93% of our staff home within the first 3 weeks of COVID. So there's a lot of Band-Aids and patchwork and things involved. So, you know, we're unwinding a lot of that in order to create better stability. The people who remained, because in Canada, financial services is considered an essential service. So we were able to keep some of our centers open at reduced capacity. The people that remained were exactly the ones that you were referring to, where we had people who did not have the appropriate infrastructure at home in order to be able to support work from home. So I'm very excited to see what 2022 brings. But, you know, if I'm confident of anything, I think that we're going to have sort of greater opportunity for talent, regardless of physical location, better inclusion of people. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what that does. I'm already seeing changes in terms of people's being able to access new roles and new opportunities. And that's really, you know, only in the last year. So I'm really, you know, moving forward. It's exciting to see what will happen.
Awesome. Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you. Let me call on Juan to provide similar kind of feedback, right? How has collaboration and all that changed in your organization?
Well, it really has changed, right? So what we discovered last year was first the resilience of our teams and all the structure that we had, things that we thought were impossible at first, as you were mentioning, on the finance sector or the healthcare sectors. To be doing work at home seemed like something impossible at first, but even the most critical teams managed to do that. Now, having said that, we are now on a transition phase where we see that if we ask people on what they actually want to do, it seems like right now we're starting to do surveys across the globe on that, and a very high percentage, I would say over 70% of the people are telling us that they would prefer either not going back to work or going back 1 day a week or 2 days a week. So it's a delicate balance that we will need to start addressing now that things are going back to normal, on whether, yes, this we could face the challenges, we could face what the service that we needed to give given during the pandemic. But now that it's over, there are several items where you can improve, and co-location is a part that it plays a big part in it. So it's going to be a learning for all of us, understanding how much of a hybrid model we need to have going forward, taking into account the preferences of our employees, and at the same time, understanding what works best for our clients and ourselves in sharing the expertise and collaboration across the teams.
Great. Good call out. Thank you. Shiva, how are we doing on time? We have time for one more question?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Well, I saved the best one for Mitch, I think. Mitch, I think Tanya works at TP, right? Tanya Famador? No one. She's one of the support leads from what I understand, right? Last time I connected with her, she was still there at TP. The question I have for you is, I know and TP is big on kind of the diversity and inclusion, not that any of the other organizations are not, right? How has that paradigm changed over the last couple of years with, remote workers being more available to join the workforce, right? That may not otherwise have been able to in some of the regions of the world.
That's a good question, Jay. Actually, our CWO is the head of the inclusion committee here at PP Middle Americas region. And this work at home opportunity has given us the chance to hire from corners of the country that we hadn't previously foreseen. So we have people from every kind of diversity, every kind of technical ownership, as we call it. So it's been an inspiration, the flavor, so to call it. We have a lot of people belonging to the LGBTQ communities. We also have people from Guyana. I mean, there we have Asians, Indians, we have people from Peru, we have people from Nicaragua, people from other corners of Colombia being part of that diversity. And just kind of like to connect that idea with what we were previously talking in relation to the collaborative methodologies. We've also have kind of like a lot of activities, just kind of like to balance that distance, what Vanessa was talking about. Before we decide, we used to kind of like truly decide. Now we just kind of have to call the people and make sure that we're using these kind of new technologies, such as like the cameras, just to have that contact, see the faces. So it's a very exciting part of working from home. Not only the collaborative part, but also the ethnic inclusion part. So it's been great. Yes.
No, I think it definitely agreed. Even for my organization, recent past one in Sutherland, we had changed and had seen a lot of the diversity kind of coming through. Right? I think the big variation we see is, from some of the female perspective, right? I think in some parts of the world, they still have homework that they're supposed to do, family they're more prone to take care of than normal male counterparts, that, how that balance works, right? So we had seen some of the female team members kind of say, hey, I would rather be in the office than have to be forced to kind of do my chores into the time that I need to have, right? So a lot of those dynamics coming into play, right, provides a different level of visibility that we didn't in past have, right? Because people largely were in brick and mortar sites were, kind of driving the business in a different way than, and many of the companies that I know that didn't really have any work at home setup, right? So everybody had to kind of switch to, right? And I think, as I think Vanessa that called it out, right? That everybody had to switch at a radical pace to kind of stay in business, right? And those that were not able to change ended up leaving the business for one reason or another, right? So I think a lot of that definitely comes through having the new balance or new inclusion of a more diverse workforce. I think it can only get better. And hopefully a lot of the organizations are learning and continue to learn from it. Shiva, I know where we are from a time-wise perspective. Did you want to go through some Q&A? If not, I can still go a couple of questions.
We have one question by Henry. This question to Norman. Norman, if you could just read this out in the chat box.
Sure, Shiva. Okay, so the question says, given the fact that health industry has been one of the most affected by the pandemic, have you experienced a significant decrease in agent productivity due to a transition to remote working? And if so, do you think it extends to other organizations? So thank you, Harry. That's a pretty good question. So I was gonna piggyback on the latest question to Mitch. And I think for majority of the big organizations, right, in the onshore footprint, the challenge right now, and this is what we're seeing, and we all familiar with this new concept that it's kind of like being popular in the last few weeks, right, which is called the Great Resignation, which is how a lot of these folks that came into our industry during pandemic, right, are now moving back into their industries, right? A lot of people that came from, the hotel industry, tourism and other industries that were not their original, right, career. Maybe they just came finding that security, working from home. And now that kind of like industries and countries, as we move in through vaccination, right? They're feeling the safety to go back on what they were doing before. I think that's number one situation here. For us as an organization, right? We have seen that at the beginning. I think that would be kind of like divide this in stages, right? First stage, there was a lot of unknowns into the industry, and I think for everyone, not just healthcare, but everyone else, right? Airlines was spiking on service levels, right? The queues were kind of exploding at the moment of pandemic kind of hit. Then queues like fell, right? And then that happened as well in other industries, like in the entertainment industry, right? Like Netflix, right? Amazon Prime. They saw a lot of those spikes in volumes because of, people was just stuck on their homes. From a retail perspective, right? A lot of individuals changed a lot of consumers, right? Changed their behavior from shopping on a regular, I'll say, physical store, and now just going into a digital app, right, and ordering what they have to order. I think those stories came from Instacart, Amazon.com, and those all organizations saw a change of drastic impact on their call volume. So I'll say from healthcare standpoint, we kind of happened the same. A lot of people was concerned about their health, right? And the core from our business, which is ensuring that our members, right, get actual insurance, right, that it's gonna protect them from whatever situation they go through in their health. That also made some of those impacts. I think it's critical right now for us as organizations, right, to keep in mind that because your clients might be thinking on the ability that contact centers have, that partners have to staff, to deliver, their call volumes, to ensure the call volumes are attended, right, and the staffing is in place. That's where internally contact centers, because I'm coming from a contact center background in the past, and the ability right now for us to ensure that engagement is in place on our workplaces is so critical, as that's going to be the key, for us to keep those folks that might be thinking leaving our companies due to a new opportunity opening up in the outside world. So I think it's critical to invest a lot of into engagement, into training and development, ensure our workforce is fully qualified to say, I want to stay in this industry. I don't want to leave it, right? I came just by chance, right, because of the pandemic, but now I want to be here. I just don't want to leave. And I think that's so important in the last, in these latest times, right, when we're seeing a lot of those folks leaving our companies. It's totally different, from coaching on brick and mortar operations to now coach from a actual, I'll say virtual environment, right? So for me, I think that'll be some of the lessons, right, that also add up value into our daily operations moving forward.
A lot of information there.
Sorry,
it is. You are right. It is going to be very, very evolving, right? A lot of change we have gone through. A lot of change still coming.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. Well, Shiva, I think I'm going to stop here for the where we are. I think we're a little bit over on time, but definitely want to thank you, fellow panelists, for your feedback, your information sharing. Really appreciate it. Shiva, back to you.
Thanks, Jay. Really appreciate all the panelists out here for taking your time out during the busy schedule. Really great insights that you all shared, and very encouraging. Do you have any questions? Let's take one or two last questions from the audience. Feel free to ask any questions. You could type in the chat box, or if you raise your hand, we'll unmute you. Probably you could have two-way conversation. Do you have any questions from the audience? If you particularly want to ask question to any of the panelists, feel free. Okay. Yeah, there's one question to all the panelists where it came in the registration time. What will be the preparedness for the WFM industry or WFM head or WFM team to be ready, because growing business seeks a lot of support from the WFM folks. We are going to sit in the driver's seat to drive the business and support the business, lowering the risk at the same time, ensuring the gross margin and profitability, and ensuring that right people are there at the right time. Skill is becoming scarcity. How is that? What are the few tips or probably trends, or should really learn and adopt, or probably what do you your suggestions? Jay, if you could highlight and everyone can answer to this question.
Trying to get myself off mute. Yeah, no, I think from a lot of the organization, right, especially in an outsourcing type of environment where I've spent majority of my time, but even in a captive environment where I've kind of had a couple of run-ins, the goal is always to build versus buy, right? I think buying comes with an experience or out of desperation, right? Building is, where I feel that you can get a lot more loyalty out of the team members. You're able to coach and develop them, help them progress through their career path and the industry, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that they will stay with the organization, right? As they continue to learn and develop and grow, I think they might, find their own path that they're better suited for, they want to follow. But my focus has been to drive more of a learning and development within, right? I use GWFM, right? And we'll be using the certification process, right? Again, that provides an opportunity for a lot of the team members to learn and improve their livelihood, right? And that's how I kind of look at it. My role is to provide an opportunity to build a bench strength within the organization so the ecosystem is sustainable, right? So even if I wasn't here tomorrow, the ecosystem needs to continue to work, right? Same concept I had used in my past organization, right? So when I left, it didn't really require me and create a hemorrhage point, right? Or single threading within the organization that ends up being a hemorrhage point, right? So I think between the tools, the digitization, the automation pieces, the people investment has to be equally there to kind of groom them to not only do their jobs as a kind of a robotic process that is very kind of A, B, C, right? If this happens, then you do this, but educate them to learn to do more business engagement, business investigation, business intelligence sharing with the stakeholders, right? The more communication skills that they build, the more rapport they build, the better off they will be, right? But there is no training that will kind of guide you through how to do better communication, right? I think, yes, you can learn the basics, but the real life situational experiences will come by way of learning and developing through your supervisors and leaders. I think Norman, you had your hand up, or Vanessa, you had your hand up. I don't know which one had it up first. I missed that.
Well, I'll be super short. I think just in addition to what you said there, I think it's really important to establish a healthy ecosystem. You know, your company can survive whether or not you're captive or BPO. You have to create an ecosystem to grow talent. You know, unfortunately, with a lot of turnover and things like that, or particularly in captive centers, sometimes we don't necessarily have an ecosystem that supports that growth and development through WFM. So it's less to me about the technology or the tools. It's really about the people between the chair and the keyboards, and giving them that opportunity to be able to layer on that knowledge and to get that progression so that you can get that sort of real WFM fluency that you get when you've had those different opportunities within workforce management.
Yep, absolutely. Norman?
No, just wanted to add, you know, I think kind of like agree with Vanessa, right? And as well, you know, for us to be kind of successful in this new area of contact centers, right? I think critical that there is a strong business process improvement, right? We definitely need to be able to minimize risk, right? And at the same time, you know, streamline the communication among our channels, right? Everything per se, you know, will be unknown at some point, right? We don't know might happen in the future, right? And you call it knocking on wood, that's what happened, right? But there are possibilities, right? A new disruption coming into the industry. That's why, you know, establishing strong business process improvement or environment, right, will allow us to have a better way to, you know, to forecast things. And that's what we do in WFM, right? We try to anticipate what's going to be the impact of things, right? At the same time, real-time visibility and alerts, right? Being able to kind of create that communication flow among, you know, our internal and captive BPOs, right? Internally speaking to our partners will definitely be a plus, right? In the way we do things. At the same time, that goes hand in hand with, you know, the way we manage volumes, right? With upskilling, dual skilling, so different, you know, strategies, you know, that we can implement to kind of service our members, our customers, right? And create that, you know, customer experience, that CX that will definitely define, you know, the type of business you are, right? And as well, enable your workforce, right? In the past, we have seen that many organizations are looking into creating that employee eligibility, right? When your people feel comfortable to kind of play with those schedules, and I think that goes to Vanessa example, right? And the way they're moving into the cloud to allow their agents, right, to kind of pick the schedules and things that sometimes might look or might sound outside the norm. That's the way, you know, we create that you know, environment that's going to help us to keep people happy. At the end of the day, happier agents will translate into a happier CX, right? To a happier customer experience to our customers, right, and end users, and as well, you know, optimizing our workforce planning, right? How we are doing things right now. Let's think ahead how we can, you know, maybe change or challenge those assumptions, right? That we know that at some point we're assumptions, and we're the norm, right? In terms of, you know, seasonality, volumes going on in different stages in the process, right? But now that's completely might look odd, right, to the way we see things and we do things. So, and again, to Shiva's point, right, the right work, having the right people, the right time. I think that will be the key for success, right, for us as workforce professionals. And last but not least, you know, the way you control the data, right, the way you know, artificial intelligence, analytics fall into place, right, for us to be able to, you know, to take better decisions, right, assertive decisions that will make our models to work in a better way, in pro of improving, again, CX, improving agent life cycle, right? And that technically will be what companies are looking into their partners, right? That partnership that allows them to see the next future, right? But at the same time, being able to trust them, being able to, to partner again in this journey.
Yeah,
I
agree.
guess
Good stuff.
maybe a summarized will be to have a structured, organized approach and to keep constant and fluent communication wrapped, remap our processes, and of course, as leaders, investing time and effort to understand the new norm impact and make the best to just have less pressure than what our team actually needs, right? We have been forced to adapt to a lot of things because we have to, but if we have the ability to just release a little bit on that to our teams, then I think that's our obligation, right?
Any insight from Mitch and John?
I cannot do that, Shiva. Basically, kind of like what we'll be doing in the next year, because this is pretty much known. Our CEO this morning was telling us 80% of our personnel, at least in the regions that I do, in Colombia, Venezuela, Nicaragua, they will not be coming back to the sites. This is a Latin American culture that they appreciate working from home. So that's a challenge that we are in the BPO industry, we need to look forward to. And it's how we're gonna accommodate those new cloud campuses, or how we're gonna talk to our clients to trust, and it's part of the pains that we've been exploring for the last 2 years, and we will keep exploring in the next years. How are we gonna ensure our clients that we will have the conditions of security, of trust, of results, of KPI achievement, as well as having a financial benefit back to our companies? That has been our work in the last 2 years. Gonna be our part of our job in the following years. Our personnel, at least from the workforce standpoint, they're really happy to work from home, and they are actually overcommitting. Part of the pains that we've been experiencing during the time is, how can I make that my workforce analysts are not working 12 to 14 hours a day? So with part of the pains, I mean, a pain, I love to have work 24/7, but obviously that's not a work-life balance that we would like to have. And it's been a pain, so we have to put methods of control, so like we have to work just 8 hours, 10 hours a day. So out of the pains and the things that we need to look forward to, also cybersecurity, analytics, how are the agents being more productive from home that they were outside? Sometimes I have the question, or I raise the question, is that actually happening? Because at home, obviously, we don't have a control environment. So whenever an agent at home has like an outage of electricity or an outage of internet, when we used to be outside, that was easily corrected. But now we need to have a little bit more overheads that impacts the financial model, and we need to balance that out when we're offering those protocols to our customers. So all in all, I think we are at forecast of a very exciting years. Also, what Vanessa was mentioning, should we leave the door open to the agents to create their own schedules? Wow, that cannot happen nowadays because the demand is so high. Other companies that probably weren't thinking about hiring a BPO, now they're having the need to hire a BPO, because obviously the force we saw that happen in the United States. Most of the people didn't want to come back to work at the site. They wanted to either keep getting their checks at home, or they want to have works at home. So I think this new normal, what brings ahead is just how we're gonna adapt to that new population that wants to work from home, that wants to have flexible schedules, while ensuring safety and results to our customers. That's what's going to be will occupy our full attention for probably the rest of the year, and what's coming for the next year. 22.
Thanks, Mitch.
And
Yeah, hi, Juan. Yeah,
and on my side, I think what we heard so far summarizes what's happening. I don't see we're having different issues in the industry. We're kind of struggling with the same things right now. So So yeah, the approaches we're taking are similar to the ones that we've heard so far. So I don't have anything new. I see what I take from this panel is that we are struggling with the same things, and we're trying to work around the solutions for all these struggles. So yeah.
They're opportunity, not struggles.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, Dr. Shiva, thank you for pulling us together. There he is.
There you are.
You might be
I can't
muted.
hear.
Okay, good.
That's really indeed a wonderful discussion, and I really learned a lot. I'm sure that all the audience got immense learning in the process of listening to the keynote speeches, and all the eminent speakers shared their insights and the experiences. It's really a great learning. I see that as one of the good events in Latin America. So second event. So next year we would do 3 to 4 events. That's what I was just thinking. Probably we could do countrywide as well. Looking forward for exciting 2022, where we would do a lot of innovation in Latin America side. So I just posted social media links. All the audience, please join us in our social media, on our social media. So let's get connected and let's learn from each other, and let's have professional networking and great knowledge sharing. So with this, thank you so much for all the distinguished speakers for taking your time out and sharing your insights and great minds. Thank you so much. Looking
Thank you for
forward to
the
connecting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to connecting with all of you again. All right. Thank you so much. With this, we conclude. I'm going to share invites to all the audience for the BWFM front. So we want all of them to join us here. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Have a pleasant evening. Thanks all the audience really taking time out to take care. Thanks everyone.